Do you think Chinese students lack creativity? Why or why not? Ooh. Um, that's a good question. I think that Chinese students have a lot of gifts and they have like a lot of talents that American students don't necessarily have. But I do think that creativity is not one of those gifts. Just like
because the grouplism.
yeah,
Yeah, like you're not like encouraged to express your own color, personality.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's just part of the culture there, and
Yeah.
it's really interesting like the way that they're taught. Because when I was taking classes over there, I was taught in like Chinese style kind of, and it's very like the teacher asks you a question and there is only one possible answer that you should say back. And in America, it's very different. Like
Yeah.
you're encouraged because I want to be a teacher after I graduate, and so in all of my education classes, they tell you that there's not just one answer. Like
Yeah.
whenever you're a teacher, you have to be open to all these different answers from students,
Right.
and that's just not the same in China.
It's not. We have a standard answer.
Yeah.
If you're like far away from that answer, you get points off.
Yeah.
Even it's like literature, like your own analysis of something, like why did the author mention that day was raining?
Right.
I'm like, is there like obvious answer to that?
Yes.
Like one answer?
Apparently, yeah.
You don't know what the author was thinking.
Yeah, exactly. It is like there's always one answer, and yeah, and like you have to be able to memorize a lot, which I think American students.
It's part of learning Chinese. You just got to memorize pictures.
Yeah.
Thousands of them.
Yeah, exactly. So it dates back like really far into your history and culture too. But
Right. Oh, as we mentioned, grouplism.
Yeah.
Could you like talk a little bit more like about what you've seen about this in China?
yeah, definitely. We talked about this a lot during my program over there. Just because we talked a lot in our classes about different political issues in China and like current events in China and stuff that was coming up in the news. And it's really interesting because in my experience, like whenever I would enter into like political discussions with people in China, it was funny because if you asked them a question, almost all of their answers were the same about like what they thought about their government or what they thought about certain policies and like
What do you
all
think?
these things.
What's that general answer?
So usually they say I trust the government and like I trust that they're making the right decisions, or they would try to
Because
explain.
they have no say to it.
Yeah, exactly, and that's totally different from America because they like for example at one point I was talking with somebody and they were asking me about like elections in America and like how to vote, and they were talking about President Trump, and they were like, oh, like what do you think about President Trump? And I was like, well, I mean, he's our president, so I can't like always complain about him, but like he wasn't my first choice, like I didn't vote for him. And then they just like were so surprised and they were like, did you just say that you didn't vote for your president? I was like, yeah, I didn't. Like, I don't know, it was just interesting. And so
Like you think like you didn't vote for the president, but he still became the president.
Yeah.
Like, that's shocking to them.
yeah, and it's surprising to them that I was willing to say that I disagree with some of his policies,
I see.
because I was telling them like, well, like some of them I think are okay, like they seem to be helping, but like most of them aren't. Like in my opinion, they're not what I would like to do. And they're like, oh my gosh, and they were just really surprised
You're
that I was.
censored.
I know. They were surprised that I was disagreeing with a political figure, and I just thought that was really interesting. So I talked to my Chinese teacher over in China about that, and she was like, well, it's just like the Chinese mentality. Like we're supposed to support the government because they support us, and yeah.
I mean, because we have no other way like to affect their decision. Not really, like not directly at least, but it just So I mean, the best way you can deal with it is to just like be positive about it.
Yeah.
If you like you don't trust it, and you're just making yourself miserable.
Yeah.
By why make your life hard?
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting because a lot of young people who I talked to, they also just didn't want to talk about politics, which is so funny because in America I feel like that's something almost every young person wants to talk about. So.
Also, we feel like we're at like disadvantage. It's like even like we have no access to Google, and like a lot of information are. Oh, I'm not sure if I can put this on.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. I'm sorry.
Okay. Anyway, like basically the information we get, a lot of them are under the government's control, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But somehow we still like get to hear because China's a big country. You can't possibly control everyone's,
Right.
like source of information. So we do know that we are aware that like other countries, there are other countries that actually have their rights to like influence the government and then get to choose. They have the rights basically, politic wise.
Right.
So we feel like we're at. I can't say we. At least I don't like to talk about politics because I feel like I'm at disadvantage.
Interesting.
And Chinese people, and I feel really attacked when people say, even they're just showing empathy that we have no say on the government decisions. I just don't like talk. Like, I feel like you're giving me empathy because that's like a disadvantage
Right.
to you.
Right.
But I'm not sure if that's really a disadvantage because just different countries have their ways to
Yeah.
regulate.
Yeah.
But like, since it's different and it's obviously on the opposite of like what American system is,
Right.
so like it's considered a disadvantage or something bad, something
Yeah.
like miserable. But we're not suffering. I don't
Yes.
know. Like,
no, you're not. You're not at
Yeah.
all. And I think I had that conversation with a lot of my American classmates this summer because a lot of them are very politically active, like in America, and very set that we have the best system in the entire world. And I
Yeah,
think that
democratic.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's like the mindset that needs to be overcome. And that's part of why we went to China was to interact with like we were part of this program that was all about citizen diplomacy. So it's talking about how like just as like a normal citizen, like you can actually participate in like diplomacy between countries, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And so that's what we were supposed to be doing. We were supposed to be finding out like what the benefits of like the Chinese government does and like how like seeing for ourselves about how you're not oppressed per se and like
Yeah,
how, like
we're
like
not.
you're still human beings and you are doing just fine. Like I know,
Yeah.
but a lot of people think
we're just
that-
like as exposed
yes.
to, but at the same time, like you can't possibly be exposed to like everything that's happening around you. I don't know, like it has pros and cons,
Yes.
just like everything else. I don't know, like just like democracy in the U.S. also has pros and cons.
Yes, it does.
But somehow just like viewed less of,
Right.
of, compared to democracy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something interesting. Like, we also need to question like other Americans. Like, what are the problems that you see with democracy? Because a lot of people see flaws in our government too, but they're not willing to talk about those.
Right.
But they're really willing to point out the flaws in other people's governments. So I don't know. Just recognize that no government is perfect, and that
Yeah.
we're all trying to find one that is. Yeah.
All right. Is enough to that question?
Cool.